It's important, number one, as I said earlier, to surround yourself with wise people, and make sure that you have those around you that will help support you in ways um, that are not only critical, but are going to be instrumental to your personal and professional life. Number two, the founder of this firm, Marjgerie Cross, said, don't underestimate the power of being underestimated. Too many of us know what that means, whether you're a woman of color or a woman in general, or a person, if you will, that looks like you and me, Clay. And that power of being underestimated has fueled the creations and the amazing actions and efforts that so many of us have taken. And it has allowed us also to be even more convinced of the importance of the kind of work that we do and the importance of bringing others along with us.
Welcome, Licy the Clay's Council here. Of course, I'm the host, Clay D, the one and only here, coming at you the best way I know how. And we have a great guest here. And if you could just introduce everyone to yourself, sir, today.
Clay, it is great to be with you and your audience. I was really honored to get your invite and have this opportunity to sit down on what I would describe as a kitchen table conversation with Clay D'Souza
Yep,
about those things that impact all of us who sit around this table, the audience today. And so I'm glad to be with you and the readers and the listeners. And I hope together with you that what we share and talk about today uh, has some impact and has the opportunity to be helpful to someone. Thank you.
for sure, definitely. Now let's get right into it, Licy. Now, as someone with extensive experience in diversity and inclusion, what strategies do you believe are most effective in amplifying marginalized voices, particularly those of women or persons of colors, black and brown folks like myself in influential circles? And as you're answering that, if you could just explain to the audiences, who you work for, who you represent, as you're answering this question here.
Thank you. Great question. Look, I think the intellectual response to your question is let's create more inclusive platforms. Let's implement more mentoring programs. Let's advocate for more diverse representation and leadership. All of those things and many more are critical. I think, however, most important in this is the power of resiliency, the power of giving yourself grace and opportunity to know that you already have that power that resides in you. You know, the great Alice Walker, terrific author, as she was, said, the most common way people give up their power is believing that they never had it to begin with. And so understanding that you walk into the spaces that you're in with influence and bringing your ancestors into that space is important, coupled with those things that are important to have in place and to develop and create so that our voices can be heard and we can be seen. And I think when you bring those together, then you create opportunity that did not exist. And let's be clear, opportunity is an evolving term, and opportunity doesn't just get curated once. You must continue to work at it, and you continue to need to invite people into that conversation. Too often, I find myself, even after all these years working in Washington, D.C., arguably a very diverse place by many standards, intellectually and so on. But too often, I still find myself walking around and sitting at tables in which I'm the only person that looks like myself. And so that's an indication of how far we've come. It's also an indication of how much farther we need to go. And in the work that I do at APCO as a senior executive, helping to set our engagement and strategy in the market and having served as the managing director of our global headquarters in Washington, D.C. office, uh, uh, this is abundantly true. I'm highly cognizant of the role that I play, looking the way I do in an industry like this, which, as one of my close friends said to me, who's also been in this industry, there's not a lot of us that look the way we do at these senior levels. And so, as you engage in this work, or you want to, like we've been seeing these last many years, you need to look up and you need to see someone that looks like you, someone who understands you, someone perhaps who expresses and engages and has a story like yours, in order to help inspire you and be seen in that work. And so I understand that my role is not just the work that we do here as the largest independent woman-founded public affairs and advisory firm, but it's also being a model and an inspiration to many who say, I'm so glad that someone who is of my background, perhaps of my culture, looks the way I do. In fact, I'll end it with saying this. When I first took on the role of managing director here, I have a staff person who's been with us for now 18 years, and he looked at my profile and saw the announcement, and he remarked, "Holy, you know what?" And he looks like me. And so I continue to say that to him today because that impression that it had on him made enormous difference, not just for him, but for me and for all of us. And so thank you for the great question.
Absolutely, Licy. Now, your career spans various sectors, including nonprofit, corporate, and governments. How has this diverse range of experiences shaped your school of thought, your philosophy, or perspective on creating inclusive policies and practices, perhaps?
St. Augustine said the world is a book, and those who do not travel only read one page. I have been greatly blessed and fortunate to grow up in a multicultural, multifaceted family. My parents are immigrants from West Africa, from the islands of Cabo Verde. I
Nice.
grew up as the first generation immigrant in Boston, particularly at a time of great turmoil and issues within the community. And I have always deeply believed about the power of knowing more about the world and how the world interacts with you, because I grew up in a global community, one that I should say, a global family, and a community that was still at that time struggling, I think, to try to understand what that meant, as happens, I think, still to today. But for me, my constant companions was this global connectivity, because my parents, being where they're from, and the history and our ancestry, but also my constant companions have always been diversity, equity, and inclusion from the start. And growing up, watching my immigrant parents with an accent, with names that perhaps others couldn't understand, including my own, in a society that was trying to figure out, what are you, who are you, what's this language, what's this culture, at least at that time. Today, Cape Verdeans, whether you want to or not, we're always telling you, we're very proud, Cape Verdean and Cape Verdean Americans, about who we are. We're going to tell you. But back then, it was assimilation and trying to fit in, and also watching my parents um, be victim to bias. At that time, it wasn't unconscious, it was very conscious. And in some ways, you could say that the bias exists today in consciousness, but nonetheless, and racism and so on. So growing up watching that in the heart of Boston had an impact on me. Watching them interact, and myself going through the systems that we were engaging with, healthcare, education, and other ways, it left an indelible mark on me that I have brought to the center of who I am and all the work that I do from that time till today. And therefore, the way I look and experience the issues is in a way that is multifaceted, multicultural, and multilingual, because I speak several languages
Mhm.
myself. All of this gives someone like me great visibility and understanding of the connectivity that exists across culture, across people, and allows me and others like me to have depth of understanding, depth of vision, depth of connectivity, and the ability to help clients, if that's the case, or situations, in other case, to have a more holistic view of the situations that may be happening and be able to then pull in diverse perspectives, people, experience, etc., into that. And it's allowed me to then bring along the way a fostering of very inclusive policy, inclusive practices, and making sure that we show up in the full range of diversity in all the ways that can benefit the kind of work that we do and the kind of work and engagement that exists, in this country across different parts of the economy and such. And so I'd say, Werner Meyer said diversity is being invited to the party, of course, and inclusion is being asked to dance. We need to do a lot more dancing here, and partying is one thing. But if you're not dancing and you're trying to figure out how to be on the dance floor or get there, um, it's going to take looking and experience this in ways that may feel uncomfortable to you, but nonetheless are important to continue to move forward in that way and bring your diversity into the work that you do and to be proud of that.
Wonderful. That's definitely great to hear. Now, you've been recognized, Licy, as an influencer in Washington, D.C. for over a decade. How can women and other underrepresented groups build similar levels of influence in policymaking circles, especially in the times in the very heavy political and social climates that we're living in these days?
No, influence is not given to you, it's grown. And so you must plant your seeds wisely. One of the ways in which I advise, encourage, particularly our young brothers and sisters to do, is what I so often am reminded in Proverbs 13:20, which says, if you surround yourself with wise people, you too will become wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm and becomes a fool themselves. It is so critical in one's life, wherever you are, but especially in a town as dynamic and as competitive, and if you will, political, like the one I reside in here and have been here a long time, to always ensure that you are surrounding yourself with those that light up when you come into the room, those that will help you become and stay wise, and also to recognize that these wise people already exist in your life, and some of those are just waiting to hear from you. And what I'm always really surprised by is how we too often, just generally in life, run away from wise people because we know what wise people are going to tell you. We know the kind of counsel that wise people give, and it does not often come through in ways that you want to hear, like with my sons, for example, who may not want to hear the wisdom that I have being teenagers, but like any parent, that's our role, and therefore, the wisdom comes through that. And so I think for me and for others, the importance is um, finding your champions, finding your networks of support, finding those that take interest and recognition in who you are and what you're doing. I've been very blessed to have people throughout my life who have guided me, recalibrated me, have rebalanced me, and have helped me to become where I am today, the most imperfect yet most persevering person that I can be through resiliency. And what I also can say is that it is that persistence and that sort of thinking and ensuring that you're with wise people that allows you, coupled with having the confidence through your support group, through the mentorship, through the champions, that you're meant to be at the seat that you're sitting in and at the table that you're sitting at, and know that you're there and that your voice is important, and to give yourself the grace to do it. Too often when we get to the tables, we find ourselves thinking that we don't necessarily belong here. And sometimes our own insecurities cause us to feel as if my voice shouldn't be heard, or if I speak somehow it may be not heard in the way that I want, and therefore better that I be not heard so that no one thinks I might be a fool. And that often can uh, make one feel as if there isn't enough to contribute. And so perseverance and engagement and planting your seeds widely with those who are wise around you is always an important part of the advice I give.
That's great. That's great. Those are a lot of good gems you just dropped there, Licy, and such. And given your background in public health and social impact, and forgive me if I'm misspeaking on your background at all, but what do you see as the most pressing issues facing um, persons of colors in those spaces, in these areas right now? Just given public health and social impact and all, given your background there, if you could just kind of speak on your your viewpoints on those things.
You ask a fundamental question and about what's happening at the center of our society with respect to equity and health, equity into to opportunity, that will lead to the impact that we collectively want and see. And that would be a just society, one that health equity is at the heartbeat of that. And that's something that we continue to see progress, but there's still much more that needs to be done. I think the great injustice, as Martin Luther King once said, is that there continues to be these forms of inequity and inequality that still exist. And we're talking about 2024 and the level of disparities for women in particular and people of color across disease and across illness, as well as access to healthcare, disparities in health outcomes, representation in medical research. The list goes on and on. While there has been significant progress, this is an area in which there's far more that remains to be done. And there are too many of us who continue to suffer pain unnecessarily. There's too many of us that can't find access when we need it. There's too many of us who die, unfortunately, when we didn't have to die because of many of these issues that exist. And so uh, I once read in the great author Sue Fitzmaurice. She says, I'm not interested in whether you have stood with the great. And I have stood with many great people over my time, and I've been blessed to do that. And she says, I'm interested in whether you sat with the broken. And I have sat countless times over my career with those who have been broken in so many ways. When I grew up in Boston, I grew up in Boston, in Roxbury, in Dorchester, in places in which income inequality and access to healthcare, education, and many of the issues that confront us are incredibly challenging. My parents came to the country in the 1960s and suffered and experienced all of that. And through the support of their own perseverance and their work, and as well as the benefit of support elsewhere in the society, you know, we've now been able to, here I am sitting as a senior executive in one of the largest multinational firms in the world. Um, but that was a great challenge. And being able, and for me, growing up in a situation of inequality, of low income, and all the things that we've talked about here, and then over time moving into other spaces that allowed me to not only benefit a bit more, but also then work on these issues. It's giving me a perspective that I've never forgotten. As I said, with diversity, equity, inclusion, and fairness and justice at the center of everything I do, what it means to be poor, what it means to be on important federal programs that help support you. I went to school and I benefited from free and reduced lunch. I was on the precursor of Medicaid and S-chip. I have benefited from Pell Grants, right? These are all things that have helped me to get to, where I am one step at a time. And so, and I've dedicated my life to sit with the broken, whether it was through the community health centers or poor, underserved cancer patients in different parts of the country, or working with our brothers and sisters in HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment, or in the many things that I have done on maternal child health and other aspects of the system. I think this is where, for me, this it's not important of who you stood with, but have you sat with the broken and what have you done to help them advance? And so uh, this is an issue that in 2024, um, we need to make sure that it doesn't look like it was 1924, in which we're still suffering from too many things. And what I mean by this is too many things that we should have in many ways addressed that still continue to impact too many of us today.
Thank you for providing your global perspective there, including your experiences and such. But if you could just further expand upon how have your experiences living abroad influenced your approach to diversity and inclusion in a U.S. context? Just a little more specifically, if you can just elaborate a little more.
Well, I've lived in Turkey, I've lived in Spain, I've traveled to different parts of the world, and those perspectives combined with my own multicultural background and and speaking many different languages help to shape me who I am. It's fundamental that that the more opportunity that you have and the desire to take advantage of those opportunities to understand cultures and communities and people outside of your own, it allows you to have a connectivity with those communities in ways that you couldn't otherwise. It allows you to be able to look up and understand, even if you may not agree with the thinking, to at least understand the thinking, and understand and have a level of humanity between you and others. And this broad culture understanding has been such a key approach to my thinking, both in diversity standpoints and inclusion, in the US. And so if diversity is global, inclusion is local, and the opportunity is to master both. And I think in doing so, it allows you to be a even more fulfilled and thriving person, able to contribute in ways that perhaps others can. I'll just give you this example. Several weeks ago, I was at a gathering of Black professionals, international affairs, and some of the most senior officials in government were there, and these were senior Black and Brown officials there, and each talked about the importance of their own diversity in what they bring to that particular part of our country and foreign policy, and how their ability to have diverse thinking and perspective and linguistic, etc., provides them an ability to provide a perspective that perhaps many others can't at that moment. And so it's something that in this context and in so many others is so critical to the benefit of our society and to one personally. Certainly for me, I've really embraced and been blessed to have the opportunity to have that global perspective which is so instrumental in all that we do.
In your roles, Lisa, overseeing strategic communications, what advice would you provide to women or Black and brown men and women looking to effectively communicate their ideas and assert their leadership in what's probably still considered white male dominated fields?
Yes, it's important. Number one, as I said earlier, to surround yourself with wise people and make sure that you have those around you that will help support you in ways um, that are not only critical, but are going to be instrumental to your personal and professional life. Number two um, is something that the founder of this firm, Marjgerie Cross, said a couple months ago at an event being honored for her work in diversity and media and communication. And she said, "Don't underestimate the power of being underestimated." Too many of us know what that means, whether you're a woman of color or a woman in general, or a person, if you will, that looks like you and me, Clay. And that power of being underestimated has fueled the creations and the amazing actions and efforts that so many of us have taken. And it has allowed us also to be even more uh, convinced of the importance of the kind of work that we do and the importance of bringing others along with us here. And so the allyship, the sponsors, the confidence that you will find yourself perhaps too often still in places in which you're the only one, decision-making tables, internal meetings, whatever that case might be, that your voice not only is critical, but your voice is critical to be heard. And God gave you that opportunity to use it. And however you manifest your communication uh, in order to ensure that you are at the table. The other part of this is the realities that exist of being a person of color, a woman from who of color in a male-dominated field. Um, I also have had the opportunity to work with um, uh, many um, organizations. One in particular that is entirely woman-founded and run, not APCO, that works in the defense space. They're a defense contractor. And the number of stories that a firm like that and others have shared with me in terms of working in a very male-dominated industry is still staggering. But nevertheless, their perseverance, their resiliency, their ability to be confident in who they are and what they're working on has been a testament to all of us, and I think a great model of the kind of uh, principles by which to work by and live by. And there's no shortcut here per se. It's still challenging for many of us, but those principles are critical to help us come through, along with some of the other things that I've mentioned.
Perfect. I love that. And how do you see the intersection of technology and public policy shaping opportunities for women and other underrepresented groups in the coming years, especially in the onset and the age of AI that we're living in?
Wow, I think it's creating exciting opportunities for women, underrepresented groups. It's increasing access to education. It's creating new entrepreneurship opportunities. It's enabling flexible work options. Um, I think there's any number of great uh, opportunities that are coming from this intersection. It's also raising, of course, many challenges, as I think the audience here knows, on technology itself and whether policy can keep up with it. So-called, for example, responsible AI and what does that mean, and who's responsible for it, and what does it mean to be responsible, and then how does that impact women and underrepresented groups. I had the opportunity to sit recently with senior executives from some of the largest blue chip companies in the world, discussing this issue of what's responsible and what the organizations should do. And I said the conversation that we ought to be having is not up here on the whatever top floor of the building that we're in. The conversation should be what's going on down at the street level with AI and how it's already impacting those in the community, particularly those who we know still experience bias as a result of it because of the way the technology is shaped. And so there's lots of critical issues that are being discussed, debated in our society today that, while also creating opportunities, are also creating challenges that will still confront us. And at the end of all of this, perhaps the most important is that the opportunities that are being created by technology and the intersection of public policy, that these opportunities are open for everybody. And that is the key question, is how do we all benefit from arguably the one of the most powerful forms of technology that has existed in the world, with radical and important impacts that we're all feeling right now. And just when you think you figured it out, the technology has moved at light speed, way ahead of you, and so it can feel like you're always off balance and not trying, never really there. But so is the world that we live in, and so let's ensure that we can have a technology that's shaped by everyone and that everyone can be benefiting by it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, Licy. And I think that's all the time that we have. Thank you for sharing your experiences and sharing your wisdom and advice with us. Let folks know how they can follow you if they want to reach out to you or connect with you in any professional manner.
Thank you. Well, I've enjoyed the time here this afternoon with you, and the very timely questions that you've been asking, and of course, the work that you've been doing to organize this platform. And so, congratulations to
Thank
you and to those of us who have the opportunity to sit and talk with you here. People can follow me on LinkedIn through by putting my name and follow me there. It's pretty straightforward. Same for Twitter at DoCantoLisi. And also you can follow me through my email that is on the company website.